Welcome back, everyone, to a brand new Last of Us spoiler discussion. I've already done my my own little conversation, but I want to do a spoiler discussion. I told you guys that I'm going to be doing many Last of Us Part 2 videos because I need to. I need to talk about this game on a daily basis. This game has changed me. It has affected me. It's given me a gut punch. And one of my closest friends on the YouTube space, well, he doesn't do YouTube anymore, but just one of my closest friends ever, is also a major fan of the first Last of Us game. And I'm very much excited to bring him in to talk about this game. And again, like I said, we want to have a nice discussion down below in the comment section. So if you guys are new here, though, hit that like and subscribe button. It really does help out the channel. And comment down below your guys' thoughts. Even if you totally disagree with what either me or my guests are about to say, that is completely okay. And I want you guys to understand that. We can have a civil discussion down below. But if you're going to be a dick, there's no reason at all to comment. Everyone's going to feel something different about this game. This is going to be a very unique game to talk about. And definitely me and my guests do feel very much the same way about this game. We're going to be diving into the controversy. We're going to be diving into our favorite moments in this game. Maybe some of the stuff that, we can understand why people don't like. But we do think that this is one of the riskiest games that a studio has put out in a very long time. And I think that's why I felt such a gut punch from this game. And my guest right here, Cody Curtis. How are you doing today, man?
Hey, everybody. I'm doing well. I'm excited to talk about this.
Yeah, so first, like I already mentioned everything, I do want to come out and say Cody was not spoiled. I was spoiled on the game. And again, spoiler alert, if you have not played The Last of Us Part 2 yet, spoiler alert. If you just don't care and you're watching this, well, cool, fine. You're going to get spoiled. That's fine and dandy, all cool. So, Cody, I was spoiled, and I told you this right when the leaks happened. I got spoiled. Some asshole tagged me in a picture of, and I can say what it is now, Joel dying. And said, what do you think of this? And I said, fuck you. I don't know what to think of it because you ruined something for me that I didn't want to know. Even though I think you and me can agree, I think we both knew Joel was going to die in this game. I think even from the when they announced this game, I said, okay, cool. It's going to be about Ellie. Joel's going to die. 100%. And I know some people were complaining about the marketing and stuff. I don't know about you. People were like, it was deceptive and what you were doing. They did say you were playing as another character. They just never said who it was. They also didn't really show Joel in much of the trailers at all, except maybe a couple here and there. But then people complain. I mean, are you going to complain about the Avengers and Star Wars and how deceptive those trailers can be? I mean, trailers are deceptive on purpose, but the game sold what it was supposed to be. It's a revenge story, It's the revenge story. That's what this was. But there was more than that when you dive really into this game. And I was spoiled on that. I was told that Abby was the one who did it. I didn't know who the fuck Abby was, but I knew that it was the surgeon's daughter, which kind of clever to even make that small thing a big part of it. You know what I mean? Like that, just something you don't even think about. Because as I was replaying it, the first one, obviously I knew that. I'm like, well, I'm gonna see. Can I get away without killing the surgeon? No, you can't. If you can skip everyone else in that whole hospital sequence, but you must kill him. That's kind of clever, that really take from that perspective. But even from then on, I was also told Ellie dies. That's a fucking lie. I was told Ellie dies by Abby. And the picture of her on the ground bleeding was what I saw. So when it came to a moment when you're playing as Abby and you have to fight Ellie, I sat there and go, I don't like this. I don't like this. And you know what? I'm going to be honest, Cody. If she would have died right then and there, I wouldn't have liked the game. I think I would still liked it, but I wouldn't have loved it. I would have been pretty pissed. But it kept going on. Which would, after that, I'm like, I have no idea where this is going now. I have zero idea where this is going now. Which was, that's what made me really, really excited. So, Cody, I love this game. It's a masterpiece. I really do. And, we can have a civil discussion down below if you totally disagree, but I think this game's fucking perfect. I've not felt this big of a gut punch since I saw Arrival in theaters. And I'm still can't get over this game. So, I want to hear your thoughts, Cody. What just basic overall thoughts before we kind of start getting into the game?
For me, for basic thoughts, it was kind of in two places for me, I would say, because the first day that I played it, I got through 13 hours of the game, and for a good, I'd say 13 hours onward up until close to the very end of the game, I was in a very, very bitter place. I was very, very angry at everything. I felt deceived, and I didn't like where the game was going. But as things were going on, and as more revelation about the characters kept coming about, we'll talk about this more and more as we get on, because it is attached to the controversy and a lot of the reasons why the people don't like it. But overall, having beaten it yesterday, and then had more time to think about it, the more I think about it, the more I love it. And I love what Naughty Dog was trying to say here.
Yeah, absolutely, and we discussed this a little bit on the phone, of course. And this is a game that I'm curious to have conversations with people. To be honest, every person I've known that's beaten the game has loved it. I have one friend who's iffy on the Abby sequences, but he said as it goes on, it gets a little bit better, which I agree. So let's start from the beginning of this game, okay?
Okay, let's do it.
Just so everyone knows, this isn't going to be a straight recap of the game. We're going to go starting from the beginning and kind of just start to kind of move through the game and discuss its sequences. So how long did it take you to beat it?
It took me about 22 hours.
Okay, so I was around the same. I think I was at 18, 19, 20, somewhere around there. I think I probably hit 20. I didn't really save the last bit. I just couldn't stop playing. I had to beat it. This game picks up 5 years later, after the events of the first Last of Us, which ended on a major lie, which I was glad to see them address in the opening scene with Joel. Talking to Tommy, and Tommy's reaction is just like, what the fuck did you do? And I thought it was brilliant in that whole way that they were able to kind of discuss it. That whole opening sequence was just beautiful, though. I love how it opened up. He gets the guitar for Ellie, and definitely when it leads into that Ellie sequence of them talking for the first time and him playing guitar, I was in tears right in there. Cody, what about you? How do you feel about the opening intro?
I thought it was perfect for setting up everything, and I thought it did. I thought it mirrored the first Last of Us game perfectly, because if we look at the first Last of Us, the first character that you play in the entirety of the game is Joel's daughter, and Joel's daughter, her death, and everything from then on is what
that is a good parallel. Didn't even think about that.
It's the first thing. It's the first thing
that is a smart thing.
It's the first thing that sets Joel on his journey. And the fact of the matter is that after the opening sequence, you don't play as Joel again in Last of Us 2. And it's everything then on is set for Ellie. But in terms of the opening sequence, I thought it was a perfect setup for everything. Mm-hmm. And I thought as soon as Joel and Ellie started having their conversation, I didn't start bursting into tears. However,
I bursted into tears when he started singing.
Yeah, I honestly, for me, it was a feeling like I've been away from home for such a long time.
Yeah,
and then I've finally been brought back home because of this.
Yeah, totally. Is the first game your favorite game of all time too?
Yeah.
Okay, I think a lot of people were saying that this game didn't feel needed, but I feel like it was. And, I was in that camp when the first one definitely came out. I was sitting there like, I don't know how to feel about this. Why make, how are you going to perfect perfect? How are you going, you either have to level it or be just a little bit better. And I feel like right now it's just right there with it. I think they are completely two different fucking games though. One is a coming of age story and one is a total revenge story that has a lot more to say than just what it has to say. The themes, the messages are completely different in Last of Us Part 2 than they were even close to the first one. And I think for me, just discussing this game overall, of course, the big major thing in the beginning of the game that is the catalyst for Ellie to go forward is Joel's death. This, for me, even knowing it was coming up, and when you start playing as Abby, I knew exactly kind of how it was going to go, but that lead up to Joel, and I think a lot of people are having issues with, well, how would Joel and Tommy, like, they're supposed to be so smart, why would they go into this room? They're being overrun by zombies, or clickers, and runners, and what are you going to do at that point? Not go with them? Take your chances? I mean, there's a point in time where, like, in Joel's perspective, is this girl's trying to save them. So why would you be an asshole to them? And a lot of people were like, well, why would they just give their name so easily? And it's like, if you really play throughout the game, they really talk about that. Like, Jackson, it's a fortified place, but there are people coming in and out trading. They discuss that through the game in small dialogue bits. So I love this choice, and I know it's controversy for people to really, but that moment, the acting and the subtlety in all those actors' face when he says his name is Joel, and they all slowly stand up, and the camera turns, and you see the shotgun blast off. God, Cody, I was not prepared for it, even though I knew that was where Joel was going to die. It's a brutal game, and it's one that takes no. I mean, this is a very risky game, especially from playing as the perspective as Abby, which is, again, the other controversial thing. Discussing this part, I'm going to be honest. So when it gets to that point when Ellie, when Tommy's on the ground, Abby has the gun to his head, and it's Jesse just gets shot. Like, holy fuck. You know what I mean? You walk out of the building and Jesse's dead. Ellie walks there, and I'm like, it's going to end right here. And then it cuts, and I'm like, where are we going with this? You know what I mean? Yeah. And it flashes back to Abby's perspective, which, again, the parallels between Abby and her father and Joel and Ellie are so there. And then when Abby and Lev come into play, Abby is Joel and Lev is Ellie. Same thing with the whole thing. I love those parallels. And you even see that, especially with the PTSD that Abby's going through with her father, and she's still kind of going throughout the whole entire game, even after killing Joel. And I think she personally regrets it. I felt that Abby regretted killing Joel.
I agree. I agree. And to just rewind back a little bit is like with all the controversy and with Joel and Tommy acting dumb, the one thing that absolutely irritates me about all of this is there is the argument, why would Joel and Tommy be so stupid? You know, they've been survivals. The thing that I hate that people don't take into account is the fact that within this 5 years, although there have been sweeps, so to speak, to protect Jackson and to keep this place fortified and to keep it safe, the place has been run like a sanctuary in terms of what it was like since 5 years ago when the first set of Fireflies and Raiders came to Jackson and they essentially had to start from scratch, and Joel and Ellie headed off to find the Fireflies. The place has calmed right down. It's run like a regular civilization, a regular town that doesn't have problems. You just got to go on supply runs. So for me, I look at the writing, and it wouldn't make any sense for me if Joel was as distrusting as not willing to believe people, not willing to help people, not changing in any kind of way, not becoming soft in some kind of way. Because Jackson is a town where everybody knows everybody, and everybody is. Plus, there's the fact it's been 5 years. I understand that there's also the argument to go along with the fact that Joel has been a survivor for 30, 40 plus years. But the fact is now, the difference between that situation, the last 20 to 40 years, and where Joel and Ellie have been for the past 5 years is the fact that Joel and Ellie have been living in a town where literally everybody trusts everybody.
Yep.
There's not a level of distrust. And when it comes to Abby and when it comes to Joel's death, here's the thing. Do I agree with the fact that it was sloppily written and everything? It was so poorly executed? No, I don't. And I'll get into that in a sec.
I was about to say, I thought you were about to say I agree with that. I'm like, no, Cody, are you kidding me?
I understand why people are angry and why people are pissed, because honestly, I was too. I was initial.
I was pissed too. And then when you switch to Abby's perspective to kind of follow through her, where you're like, fuck her. I don't want to play as her. Yeah. And it is a slow party game. I will say this, and I think, and I still think this game is perfect. If I would have written this story, I would have done it in a different way. And the way I would have done it is I wouldn't have even marketed Joel and Ellie in this game. I would have zeroly marketed them at all. And I would have actually started the game with Abby. And you play as Abby, you come to understand her, Owen, all of her friends, all that stuff, like a completely different segment of the world. And then she has that PTSD thing. And you see her in the hospital, and you're like, what is this? And then it goes about, and they very much underlie of why her friends are kind of disgusted with her. And then it flashes back to what she did. And then it could cut to Ellie and then it goes to Joel and all that stuff. I understand why they didn't do that, but I think people would have sat a little bit better with this.
Yeah, and the thing I just need to add on to all of this is coming back to the Joel's death scene. Like I said, I understand that people are angry. For me, yeah. I understand that it was right at the very beginning of the game. I understand we are all connected to Joel and Ellie at this point. Joel's death, as abrupt and brutal and disgusting as it is, for me, it's not poorly written. And here's
life.
Why.
That's fucking life.
Exactly. It's like, here's the thing. Look at the situation they were in before. The fact of the matter is, Joel and Tommy and all of them have been in a situation where they have been in a town that has allowed them to trust people again. Tommy more so than Joel. But because of Ellie, it seems as though Joel has gotten his humanity back. And then the fact of the matter is, it's brutal, it's dark, it's upsetting, it's abrupt. The fact is, it's a continuation of the world that we grew to know in The Last of Us 1. Mm-hmm. The apocalypse, it's not a world that is suited to cater to what you think good writing is. It's not a world that is suited to cater to what you think the characters should be. The story is not there to serve the characters are there to serve the story, is essentially what it comes down to.
Yep. And it's character progression, though, because if Joel... Yeah, of course we wouldn't. Now looking back, you don't want Joel to save Abby at all. But in that moment, he's going to, because that's the right thing to do. He doesn't know who the fuck this girl is. That is true. But at times, sometimes you have to throw all your eggs in a basket, and it wasn't the right way. So, yes, let's dive into the Abby stuff. The Abby stuff is kind of probably the most controversial stuff of the game of playing her. And a lot of people one person I've talked to just says it's difficult to get through. Until Lev comes into play. That's when the game started getting really interesting on her part. That whole forest sequence with the fire, brilliant. Literally one of the best sequences in the game. The whole sky bridge thing, really cool too. Really cool too. The whole cult was awesome. Really diving into that too. And Lev and Yara love their characters. Lev, I think, is very interesting. I actually won't be surprised if we get a DLC like Lost Legacy where it's about Abby and Lev going to finally find the Fireflies. I think that will be kind of interesting. But playing as Abby, I felt sick at first. I'm like, I don't want to play as her, but as the story goes on, you do come to understand. I already knew why, but still those moments did upset me. And I look at it from this perspective. I'm like, I like that Neil Druckmann was like, hey, we want to give humanity to these villain characters that you're looking at, because realistically, there's two different point of views. And I've always noticed in The Walking Dead too. Negan might be a sick son of a bitch, but if we followed him from the very, 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 very beginning and Rick started killing all of his men, you would want Rick dead and his group dead. That's just the truth. Last of Us is the same way. If we would have started playing as Abby and her father in the first game, and then Joel ends up killing Abby's father, you would want Joel dead. It's just how it works. And yes, obviously that's not how it went about, but they want to bring humanity to these characters, and I thought that was a great way to do so. And Abby ends up changing through the course of this game because of Lev, too. Which I thought was great. And again, when it builds up to the finale, that is when it gets perfect. So I wanted to ask you this. When Ellie's on the farm, you think everything's perfect. Did you think that? So when you get on the tractor with the baby, JJ? Yeah. I thought that's when the game was going to end. I legit thought that was the end of the game right there. What do you think? Did you think the game was going to end on the farm?
Actually, no, I didn't. Initially, for me, I thought I was going to be angry if this was the case, but I honestly thought that the game might have actually ended with Abby killing Ellie. Mm-hmm. I thought that's where the game was.
I thought so too.
But in terms of like a second ending, I also thought the game could potentially end with Ellie on the farm and then with Abby and Lev in that small little suburban town looking for the Fireflies. I thought that is also working.
Yeah, it's like an epilogue in a sense, but it wasn't. It was not a fucking epilogue.
No, it was.
The second Abby got caught, I'm like, there's a lot more to this game than I thought there was going to be. And some people, I saw one of my other friends also said, I think the game's a little bit too long. there's arguments to be made that this game could have been 2 parts. You could have done a whole Abby-centric game and then done the next game being Ellie and Abby. Would have been kind of cool in that part, but it's not. And I think part 2 kind of feels like a lot of... I feel like this... I could not imagine this part 1 without part 2 now. And I think that's the brilliance of it. I think for me, the ending of this is when Ellie finally finds Abby and she's tied up to that pole. How do you even... You can see in Ellie's face, she just gives up. She goes, why would I even kill her? She went through so much. What is the point? She got her karma.
Yeah, I agree. The one thing that absolutely kind of sickens me when I see people trashing the game, and specifically trashing this end segment, it's like, even if you didn't like the Abby portion of the game, like I said, for a good portion, if not most of the Abby segment, I didn't want anything to do with it. But I just wanted to get to the end of the story. If you come across Abby and Lev, like, I think one of the biggest problems here when it comes to The Last of Us Part 2 in particular, is nobody is putting themselves in the shoes of these characters. It's like when I came across Abby and Lev tied up on the poles and then they come down on the ground and I just looked at them, I wouldn't have been able to kill them if I wanted to. It's like, I just look at them. Abby and Lev have been just so beaten down. Over the course of the game, Abby has turned away from the life that she knew. She made a decision which ultimately destroyed the relationships that she had with everybody in her life. She lost everything. And the only person that she has with her now is someone that the people that she thought of as family want to kill. And now looking at her tied up, and as soon as she hits the ground, she's completely destroyed.
And dude, I didn't even recognize her. She was just like, I didn't even recognize her on the pole. I walked past her and I'm like, oh wait, I have to go back there and do it. Yeah, and I think the other thing with that, and again, the parallels again to Ellie's journey. And you mentioned it, Abby was set on this journey to kill. Ellie was set on the same thing. It's a cycle of violence that Abby stopped when she didn't kill Dina and Ellie. And Ellie almost didn't stop the cycle, because the thing is, if Ellie would have ended up killing Abby, I look at this, Lev would have survived in some way, shape, or form and would have came after Ellie. And it would have been that cycle. If Abby would have ended up killing Ellie, but Dina survived, Dina would have ended up coming after Abby. It's a cycle of violence. You know what I mean? You hurt one person, someone else is going to come out. It's that. Do you know what? Does that make sense?
No, it does make sense. It's like the ending of this game. The ending of this game, a lot of people are saying are trash. It's the worst video game ending possible. When really, it's the ending.
It's one of the most poetic.
The ending is exactly what it needed to be. Because honestly, I would encourage anybody that is watching this video right now, if you came across somebody that you truly hated, that you felt in your core that you wanted to kill, and you saw them, and you had to cut them down, and they were weak, and they had no desire to fight you, all they wanted to do was survive, and they looked as though they have been through hell and back, would you honestly look at them and say, you know what? Because of everything they've done to me, I'm
going to shoot you in the fucking face.
I still, you've had a really, really crappy past little while. But you know what? That doesn't matter because of how I feel about the situation. Because personally, for me, I was I would say up until I found Abby on the beach, I was still in the mindset of I'm going to find her and I want her to pay worse than any other character has paid in this game. And then the beach hits.
Yeah, so let me say this. So Ellie, for me, for majority of this game, you feel that her vengeance is pushed because her and Joel were not in a good place when he died. And even like right beforehand, they set that up perfectly because of that last the flashback before the final one, where you see Ellie yell at Joel. Yeah. And in that one, you're like, oh fuck, that was where her last words to him. And you feel that her vengeance is really pushed on guilt because of her final words to him. But that wasn't the case, which we'll talk about in a second. But
yeah,
for me, when Ellie comes home and is living in that homestead, for the very first time in her life, it feels like she's been given not just a second chance at life, because Joel technically gave her that second chance. but a third chance at life where she can now move on and live. And yes, she's going to have PTSD no matter what. And I don't think she gets that, but I think the PTSD thing happens and she goes, I still feel regret about this. I can't sleep. And then Tommy comes into play and Tommy makes her feel bad. And I feel like in this moment, Abby, I think, felt like she didn't have a choice but to go after Joel. But I think once she figured out the Ellie thing, she came to a point where she does have a choice to stop it. And I think when you look at Ellie's perspective, Ellie feels like she's guilted into it by Tommy and then Dina, and she just says, I have no other choice. I owe it to Joel to go kill her because Joel killed all these people for me. When that is not what Joel wanted. Joel wanted her to have another life. He wanted her to be able to live. And so when it comes down to those final moments, and Ellie's about to leave. She's about to just leave Abby and Lev. She has that PTSD thing again, and she goes, fight me. And that fight was emotionally brutal because you can tell Abby is just trying to fight so she can survive and save Lev. Ellie is trying to fight so she can avenge Joel. She's on top of Abby about to kill her, and she just stops. And I think in that moment, she thought of that flashback that we do see at the very, very end with Joel. And I think it goes, Joel would have done it all over again for me so I can live my life again. And I can live a full life. That is what he gave me. And I think that, again, is just poetic in itself. I think that is what makes The Last of Us such a fucking phenomenal game. This makes it a different game. It's very rare when storytelling can still surprise me, even when I know what's going to happen. And even though the last act I didn't know at all about, it was still intense and still on the edge of your seat. And it just feels like the next chapter has been opened up for Ellie. And Neil Druckmann's talking about doing a part 3. I'm going to be honest, I wouldn't want it with Abby and Lev. I don't think that's the right direction to go. I think their story is done unless you do kind of like a small Lost Legacy type thing. I think Ellie has a little bit more story to be told. But if this was the end of it, I'm okay with it. I think it's poetic in that last moment with when she goes up. And it did break my heart when she walked in the house and Dina was gone. I'm assuming she probably just left to go back to Jackson. What would you say about that, Cody?
Yeah, I would say, I mean, the only other home that Dina has known other than the home that she built with Ellie has been Jackson. So, I mean, and here's another thing I need to touch on when it comes to Dina and Ellie is one of the biggest arguments I have seen about this is that the dialogue at the very beginning of the game and everything that happens at the very beginning of the game feels very modernized. The real world politics that are put in there feel very modernized. When the fact of the matter is, once again, it comes back to the fact that Jackson as a sanctuary has been safe for the past 5 years. If something becomes, I mean, everything in the world tells us that if something is not in danger, if there is no competition, if none of that stuff is in place, everything becomes very comfortable and very complacent. And that allows a breeding ground for hatred and vitriol and all of this stuff. I mean, you don't have to go far. Look at the internet. The internet is a very comfortable space for people to put their thoughts out and look at the negativity we're in right now.
It's insane to me. And, people are entitled to their own opinion. There will be assholes and there will be people who respectfully don't like the game. That's fine. I just think you really need to look on it on a different level of surface. And again, if they do end up continuing Ellie's story, I don't want Neil Druckmann to feel pressure. And I don't think he would be. I just don't want anyone to pressure him into having to change stuff. And we get a Last Jedi situation where the thematics of this game kind of just go away completely. Obviously, you can't change out that fucking half the characters died. But I still think there is a way to further the story. I think the next game, should still focus on Ellie if they are going to decide to do that. Yeah. And just, I think it should be more of her pursuit of happiness after this all. I think that's the next evolution of that, and give her a happy ending. I think that's what I would want from this. I think Ellie deserves that, especially after such a dark, fucking brutal, grisly, emotionally, really abusing game. But one that I think is beautiful at the same time, and what it has to say about our society, what it has to say about our world and the cycle of violence and about these characters. It's great. But let's talk about that last flashback. with Joel. Because it opens up and I'm like, when is the sequence supposed to be? Is it right after that? And we find out that it is. And they have this nice discussion. Ellie starts out with saying, I don't know if I'll ever be able to forgive you. And Joel cuts her off and says, well, just so you know, if God ever gave me another chance to do it, I would do it all over again. And then she continues and says, but I want to try and start getting there, which shows us that she's not fueled by the guilt of where she left the relationship. She's fueled by the guilt of Joel did all of this for her, and she's fueled by the guilt of him of not ending on the best of terms. They were getting there, but that it was a little too late at that point in time. Kind of the same thing as like, the path of vengeance, but we do understand that they did have one last good interaction. And that is one of the most poetic things. And she's playing the guitar, and she sets it down. You see her walking off in the distance, and it cuts. I love this ending. I think it's better than the first one. I think it's more uplifting than the first one. The first one ends in a very, I wouldn't say menacing, but in a sense, a dark way, especially with everything that's gone on. And I think the flashbacks were so incorporated in this game in such a flippin' amazing way.
Yeah, I agree. And the one thing I will say is, if there's one thing that this flashback reflects with really everything in the game, is just every character inside of this world in particular is flawed. Every character, it's kind of like what Metal Gear Solid 4 and the Metal Gear series as a whole was trying to teach. There are no heroes, there are no villains, there are just people trying to survive. And that's essentially the message that The Last of Us has. And the fact of the matter is that a lot of people are treating characters, particularly in The Last of Us 2, like they're purely evil. They're fueled by hatred. There's nothing redeeming about them because they killed men, women, and children, and they did all these evil acts, and now they're redeemed. But it's like, if you look at everything that we learned about Joel, about Tommy, even just one line of dialogue gives you every perspective you need to know about Joel from the first game. And it's the fact that Joel, on more than a couple of occasions, has teamed up with people that he has regretted teaming up with. Because I guarantee you, Joel has killed men, women, and children who have not done anything wrong.
Yes. And there's always different perspective. I think the only Last of Us character I could never see myself agreeing with is David from the first game. I mean, he's a fucking cannibal. He's fucking cannibal. That's just gross. But like every single person in The Last of Us, I mean, this opens up a different perspective, is that there's always more than meets the eye. You can't judge a book by its cover, and there's always going to be more. This cult throughout the game, I mean, when they first show up, I'm like, fucking hate these guys. But then you see from Lev's perspective that, and when you go to their town, like, you do feel bad with the wolves destroying everything, So it's such a great game, and there's so much to really dive into here. So before we start getting to our final thoughts, Cody, is there anything else you really want to talk about? Any moments in here, any parts that were shocking to you, or things that you really loved about the game, and kind of just before we get to our final thoughts?
Yeah, I think for me, the thing that surprised me the most about this game is just how much respect it has for its characters. Because with every great
Cody, I don't know if you should say that. People don't agree with you.
Yeah, well, guess what? If people have differences of opinion, they can have differences of opinion, but I'm allowed to have mine. And one of the things that I hate about what's going on right now is, I don't know what happened to having a civil conversation, but literally, it's
The Last Jedi happened. That's what happened.
Oh yeah, obviously.
And the DCEU.
It's disgusting is what it is. And I guess to go along with what you said earlier, more thoughts I would have is The Last of Us 2 more so shows the world inside of The Last of Us universe for what it really is, and how it's such a reflection. Because if we look at the world that Joel and Ellie inhabit, it's dark, it's disgusting because of the distrust and the differences of opinion that people have. They have completely destroyed themselves as a world and a society. And now I mean, you don't have to look far on like any of the political stuff that's going on right now or anything else. All you got to do is go online and look at the conversations that are having with The Last of Us 2. The Last of Us 2, the game inside and out, is a perfect reflection of those very conversations in quotations that are happening.
Yeah. And Austin Putman just messaged me. He's almost done with the game, but he said that the first game is about finding love after feeling loneliness for so long, and the other one is about how hate and revenge can consume someone so much and destroy their lives. That is perfectly put. That is perfectly put. The thematics of both games are completely different. And Cody, everything you said makes literally 100% to me. Again, there will be people who don't agree with this at all. And that's okay. Like, I'm totally fine to have a civil dispute down below. There will be people who love what they do with these characters, and there will be people who hate it. It's always going to be of the title of opinion. But I cannot emphasize this enough. I cannot wait to see what Naughty Dog does next. If they decide to continue Ellie's story, part of me still wants more. The selfish part of me does, and the other part says, honestly, do we really need more? I think we do. I think you can. I want that Dina storyline tied up. You could honestly just do DLC. I think they probably will. It probably just won't be about Ellie. But I think this game, in the way that it uses flashbacks, is perfection for Ellie and Abby. The way that the technically, the gameplay, the graphics, they're straight up some of the best. Not gameplay is pretty simple. The graphics, though, are literally some of the best graphics I've ever seen in a fucking game. They look real. It looks real, guys. And The Last of Us Part 2 is not just my favorite game I've played this year so far, and probably my favorite game I've played in quite a while. It's one of the best stories I've ever endured throughout a runtime. It's one that I wanted to jump right back into, but at the same time, I'm feeling nervousness about jumping into because it really destroyed me as a person. And it felt like a gut punch. This is a game that's phenomenal by all means. So, Cody, what would be your score out of 10?
My score out of 10, just I guess if there's any final thoughts before my score that I would have, I would just say that I want to repeat everything that you just said because I completely agree with it. I mean, and this is exactly why we love doing what we do. It's learning about these stories. It's, yep. I mean, it's one of the reasons why, for you guys who don't know, I'm not on YouTube that much anymore. It's one of the reasons why I am focusing on storytelling, filmmaking, and all of this stuff. Because stories like this that could be considered divisive, but have the power to change people for the better. And I can tell you 100% that this game has changed me. And it's made me want to look at the world with more of an optimistic light to trying to change things.
Yeah.
Like these are the kinds of stories that I want to be telling. But out of 10, honestly, gameplay wise, everything else, I think only
spew it out, man. Spew it out.
I think only because I think the first portion of Abby's story with some of the side quests that she does is a bit too slow for me. I think they could have picked up the pace a little bit there, but I'm still going to give it like a 9.5 out of 10.
Fair enough. I'm sticking by my 10 out of 10. I can get what you're saying about the Abby stuff. It just worked for me. Yeah, it is slower, and it comes at a very crucial moment, but it kind of reminded me of the movie Waves from last year and how the two perspectives really switched up the pacing and everything. And this is just one hell of a game and one that I will truly never forget. And, if you are a creator out there who completely disagrees with us, please let me know. I would love to do a collab with you and really discuss this game. Again, most people I know agree with me on this game so far, but I do want to discuss with people. I want to do a video discussing with people why they disagree with this game so much and not have a debate, but more of a civil discussion, maybe kind of bring the fan base back together. So yeah, that's going to be our spoiler discussion, guys. Make sure to hit that like and subscribe button over on this channel. Comment down below. Let me know your guys' thoughts. Again, civil discussion, please. That's all we want to do. And Cody, where can they find you at? What you working on?
Okay, well, guys, if you want to follow me, if you want to see the content that I have put out, Zach has a bunch of videos and podcast stuff that we have done together on this very channel. But I also have my own YouTube channel called Cody Curtis. Just search my name, you'll find it. And the one thing I will say is I just want you guys to expect a few major announcements in the next couple of months because I'm working on something pretty big right now that I'm not going to give any details about. Zach knows what I'm talking about.
I do.
But I've got a major project that I'm working on, and it's going to be big, and I'm going to need your guys' help down the road with it. So stay tuned for the next couple of months, and that'll be coming your way.
Awesome. Thank you guys again so much for clicking on this. And of course, until next time, stay classy.